Okay, so now we're going to go over the basic mechanisms, including the bolt and the trigger group. So this will be a little bit lengthy of a video, but stay with it and hopefully you'll understand everything I'm doing. It's actually pretty straightforward. The mechanisms aren't that incredibly difficult. So the first thing we're going to do is make the bolt. So the bolt is a very easy mechanism. So this is collision layer A, so we're just going to put a stop right here so that it'll stop the bolt. Let's see where our barrel is. This is where our rounds are going to go. So the barrel is all the way up to here. Why don't we move this forward just a little bit? Yeah, I think that's better. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and delete that. Add this stop. Oh wait, we need that. We're going to add this stop. Oh, and by the way, one really quick thing, go ahead, go to your options, go to simulation and change sim frequency to 100. I usually work between 100 and 200, sometimes I'll go over depending on what my needs are. But usually I can get most things working between 1 and 200. But anyways, what you want to do is increase the density to 100 of the bolt and the stop. And you're going to add some tracks right here. So go ahead and copy that. And the mechanism isn't going to be true to life of the actual MP5K, but it's going to be fairly similar. Could make this 100% friction 0. So now the bolt basically rides back and forth. That collision layer A so that the bolt... Actually no, we'll get rid of that. We just need the bolt to... We'll fixate this and the trigger for right now. Just need the bolt to go back to about there. So we're going to add another stop, make this one a little bit larger because this is where all the recoil is going to go into. And make that a little bit heavier. We're going to go ahead and go up to 500. Move my keys. So now it should move pretty well. We're going to add a spring, make the spring a little bit longer, so about 4. Maybe not that strong, that heavy of a spring. But now it should pretty easily cycle back and forth. Also, something else we might want to do is make this collision layer C as well. What we're going to do is add some collision layer C charging handle. So move that into there. So now when we push back on this, it should... There you go, you have your... No, I'm just kidding. So we do want to make a legit gun, right? Right? Let's see how heavy this is. Alright, that was good. Let's make it 1,000. Just so that it's a little bit easier to operate. So we're also going to make a stop right here so that this doesn't fly out. And the bolt will act as a stop for that. So now, alright. And remember, save often. So make that gray because that's going to be visible. Anyways, now we're going to add the charging handle, and the charging handle is a sphere about this shape. Make it black, or just almost black. Collision layer 0. And since this is all the way forward, it's going to come to right about here. And this will be on the left side, so you're going to have to pull it from the back of the gun. And you'll see what I mean. Let's make this really heavy. The secret to getting good physics is making things really heavy, to be quite honest. So I'm going to make that 1,000 kilograms per meter, or square meter. And we're going to make this box collision layer D. Put it right here, add a hinge there. Just like that. Fixate. So now you notice how this moves back and forth like that. We're going to make this 100. So that... Oops. Let's go ahead and make those 1,000. Or yeah, 1,000 should be good. What we're going to do is get that out of view. Actions turn it into a box again because it was slightly rotated, so when I adjusted its shape. Alright, so it comes all the way out to about there. So now what we're going to do is add a box like this so that we can lock the bolts. This is one of the features the MP5 has, where the bolt will lock. Like that. Let's go ahead and make those actually a little bit heavier, because they seem a little bit flimsy. So 10,000. Alright, so now you can... There you go. And there you have your basic charging handle. Oh, and one more thing, make a box like this, larger than the ejection port, make it collision layer nothing, make it absolutely black, move it to the back. Let's see how that looks. Well, why don't we try making this guy a little bit further out. You know what, let's bring this to the front and put a tiny box right here so that it doesn't come down on its own. You have to actually pull it back. Let's make that a little bit shorter. So now and that should be good. Slap it down, pull it back. So we're going to leave it open for right now. Alright, see you in the next segment. Okay, so now just buckle down and try to get through this with me. This is the trigger group, and actually the trigger groups are a lot of fun to build. It's a lot of trial and error, so bear with me. If you did notice, or if you didn't notice already, there is a 2-round burst mode, which is different than the 3-round burst. The mechanism is the same, but it's modified. So what I'm going to do is move this to the back. I'm going to go ahead and close the bolts. And what we're going to do is we're going to start building the trigger. So just start with a basic bar like this. Fixate it to your trigger so it moves like that. Make the trigger and the bar 1,000 density. and everything else 0. So you see how the back of this trigger bar actually moves up to the selector? That's what we want. And so what we're going to do is we're going to rotate this. I think it rotates about 15 degrees in real life. So we're going to rotate that 15. And we're going to put a stop. Let me go ahead, make this like that, and put a stop right here. So now the trigger can only be pulled about 15 degrees. So we're going to add a spring and make it relatively heavy. Alright, maybe not that heavy, but yeah, I think that's about good. Now the selector is actually on safe right now, so what we want to do is we're going to get a bar like this, put it right here just below the hinge of the safety selector. I'm going to put another bar right here with a slight gap, an ever so slight gap. So now we cannot pull the trigger regardless of what we do. Only when we rotate, the selector out of position. Oops, that's a little bit too large. So we need to actually make this smaller, about that small. So when we rotate this 30 degrees to this point, we can actually fudge. What the heck? Try moving it right here. Okay, this is not working, and I don't know. Think. This is all stuff that I go through almost a daily basis just to get these things working. Okay, so that actually works perfectly despite everything that I just did. So we're going to actually make this collision layer D so that this can be stopped right here, so that the selector only rotates a certain amount. I'm going to put this right here, this right here, fixate that to the gun, and fixate this to the selector switch. So then we're going to rotate the selector switch all the way to auto. I'm going to put another stop right here. Remember, fixate it to the gun. So now how I make the mechanism so that it snaps into the proper position, and bear with me on this, this is a little bit interesting. So I'm going to put various different springs, make them different, make them all the same length and everything. You have to make them relatively strong. Increase the damping. It's a little bit too strong. So now, kind of, nope, it didn't do it. So then we're going to move this right here. There you go. So that's how you make the first increment. Then you do the same thing again. This time move it to about here. Of course you want to lengthen it so that it snaps into the first position. Then the second position, you want to rotate right to it. There you go. So you have semi, oops, make that a little bit stronger. It's all trial and error, guys, so just bear with it. It'll work in the long run. Alright, so I noticed this spring needs to be a lot stronger. A little bit longer. So you have semi, safe, and burst modes, and then auto, all you do, let's lengthen this to the point where it moves there. Alright, cool. Not cool. Adjust their lengths so that you can, let's take this and make it weaker. Fudge nuggets. Alright. You know what, we need to make these two the same strength and length. Make this one a little bit stronger. I think we have it, guys. Alright. Yup, I think so. Actually, we're going to go ahead and just make it so that that's right there. So I'm going to have to modify the skin real quick to kind of suit this, because I think that last motion is a little bit too long. So we'll go ahead and cut that. I'm going to take these two, move them out, hold Alt, select that, combine shapes, add, and then move it back like that. So now we have our basic selector snap operation, so it snaps into position. Let's make the selector itself heavy. So, fudge! Okay, I guess that works. Make them 10,000. So as long as you don't mutilate the trigger like that, it's gonna be fine. Let's move it over here a little bit. So you have semi, come on, work, fudge. Let's make this a little bit thinner, turn it back into a box. Fudge! Yeah, I say fudge a lot. Trust me, building some of these guns I say fudge hundreds of times. Make things really heavy. They operate a lot better. Alright, so you have semi, burst, and auto. I think that's actually correct too. So in all other modes, the trigger can be... I'm gonna get a little bit pissed here in just a second. I think I know what the problem is. This fix it? There we go. Also, we're gonna select this hinge, make it forward key enter. See, If I reverse it. Okay, so pressing enter also pulls the trigger. It's a little bit too strong. Let's find the point where it doesn't break anything. But then it can still rotate in the other modes. There we go. Make it a little bit faster. Rotation speed about 40 should be good. So in all the other modes, the trigger can be pulled. Just what we want. Make this a little bit weaker. There we go, and I like the feel of that trigger pull. It's relatively good. So next we're going to actually make the hammer and everything. So I'm going to go ahead and save. And then in the next segment I'll get with you on the trigger group thing, whatever. See ya. Okay, so now we're going to go over the trigger group assembly. So we're going to want a hammer to strike a certain point, and there's a reason I made this bar the way I did. So the basic trigger, we're just going to make a box. I think that's simple enough. It's collision layer B. B. So it's from straight, let's rotate it 60 degrees. Make a collision layer A. Box. Boxy box. So let's transform into circle. Put it right about there. Cut out the shape of where the box itself is. Oh, first attach center axle, then cut. So we can pull on this all day until we pull the trigger, or until we disengage the safety and pull the trigger. It's not going anywhere. Actually, I think we need to strengthen this just a hair. And also make these 0 friction and rather dense. Maybe not that dense. So, bam. And until the trigger resets, it's not going, or until the hammer resets, the trigger is not going to move forward. Okay, so there we have our basic sear. Now we just need to load this with a spring, so rotate it 60 degrees. Add a piece on the... Actually, we're going to go ahead. Just select this part of the bolt, move it down to about here. Move it. I can't do that. Dang it. So we're going to have to do something like this. And you'll see what I'm doing in a little while. So what we're going to do is we're going to just attach a hinge spring, dupe, dupe. Alright, that's a little bit too strong. I think that's a little bit more appropriate. Alright, maybe a little bit too strong, alright? It's all trial and error, guys. Maybe make these heavier. So when the action cycles, it does not reset the hammer. Damn it! Alright, we're gonna have to move this down. Just out of the reach. I'm gonna have to make it to about there. So you notice while we're holding the trigger, the hammer seems to just kind of follow the bolt forward. That's called slam firing, and that can result in misfire, so it can fire right around here when the bolt isn't completely closed, and that can result in some catastrophic failures. So actually, let's taper this a little bit. So what we want for semi-auto, which is the mode we're in right now, we want a disconnector. And the basic disconnector, we're just going to cut out the basic shape. So we're going to make a box. Be sure you have the option of highlighting things by encircling them disabled. And take this spring, copy it, get rid of the function, and just kind of cut out the shape. Doesn't have to be exactly like the M4 one, like this one isn't exactly like it. Make this collision layer C, I think that rotates freely. Also, because we're going to have two disconnectors, one for burst, one for semi, make it no self-collision so that they can both be the same collision group. And you need to take this out, make kind of a hook, like this. Combine shapes, add that. So there you go, you have your basic disconnector. I'm going to copy that, transform it into a box, and add this to our, well, first make them relatively heavy. That's my Skype, I'm not going to check that yet. Make them really heavy, not extremely heavy, but heavy enough so that they don't slip. I'm just going to make a basic shape like that. I know I was a little bit liberal with, actually we'll shorten this just a little bit. Make a ramp right here. Oh right, we need to spring load this, don't we? So what we're going to do is put this like this. Copy that, transform it to a box, straighten it out. And I do a lot of things fast, so if you guys want me to make things a little bit slower in the next videos, I think that rotates perfectly. Oh, first, make these not no self-collision. Alright, so put that there. So now I think that should rotate fairly well. Spring load it. Make that spring really heavy, guys. So when we hold the trigger, it prevents it from slipping until we fudge. Okay, we're gonna have to modify a few things. So we want it to, let's get rid of this piece right here so that the hammer can rotate into position like that. Let's make this even heavier. This is looking a little bit something more along the lines of an AK disconnector. So when we pull the trigger, we want the disconnector to actually be low enough that, or the disconnector shelf to be low enough that we can, that when we release the trigger, it'll actually reset into the disconnector or the sear. So we actually want to rotate this about like that. So watch, we hold the trigger, we pull the bolt back, and it does not what it's supposed to do. Damn it! Alright, we're going to modify this a little bit. I think that should be good now. Hold the trigger with the enter key. There we go. So watch, you only get one round per pull of the trigger in semi. Alright, so stay tuned and we'll get on to the other firing modes. See you later. Okay, so before we get onto the burst mode, we're first going to make automatic. So we're going to move our selector to auto. Then we're going to add a piece so that we can disable the disconnector for semi. And we're also going to put a piece in for auto, burst, So make that collision layer E, make that heavy. And you notice I use a lot of heavy densities. That's what you want, because a lot of what you're doing is under high stress. So I'm going to put that right here. So watch, when we pull the trigger... Okay, I know what's wrong. Need to actually move this right here. Alright, so now notice how the disconnector does not rotate with the trigger group. So if we hold the trigger, the hammer once again moves kind of freely. So there is a problem with this. So this will slam fire in this mode right now. So we need to devise a mechanism that'll hold the hammer back until the bolt closes completely. So semi-auto works perfectly. But full auto, however, the hammer just moves kind of freely, which is bad. It's never safe. So what we want to do is, you notice we have all this mechanical motion right here, this bolt moving back and forth. So why not utilize the bolt itself? So what we're going to do is take this, transform it into a box, make it relatively skinny, cut out this piece right here, and you'll see what I'm doing right now. I'm adding a AK style lightning link or interrupter, so it's a V shape. So what we're going to do is make this relatively long, hinge it about 45 degrees should do, make it a little bit longer. Now we're going to fixate those together, and then we're going to take this one, make it a little bit lighter. Okay, so now when it rotates about 15 degrees, or with the bolts right here, you want to take this. Oops. Yeah, my precision is off today. It's also my mouse is kind of finicky. Always has been. And I've been kind of dealing with it. Just doing whatever it takes. So I'm going to add that and also add that, so that now the hammer will drop. But notice that the lightning link does not rotate into place to hold the hammer back. We want to add a spring. So we're going to rotate it to about here. Add a spring. Make that spring really heavy, really strong. Then rotate it back. So now even if we hold the trigger, watch what happens. Notice how the hammer's held back. Then when the bolt closes, bam. So there's your basic automatic function. Don't tell the government that you know this. If you're in the US, because government does not want you to know this, I suppose. Well, they probably don't care. There's plenty of videos on how these function, these interrupters. So I just made it so it's a little bit smoother right now. Oh, also actually no, the fudge pop-up stuff happens. Gonna have to uninstall that, whatever that was. So now the hammer will continuously drop as long as the... What's jamming it right now? I do not like this jam. Right. We need to shorten this a little bit. Okay, so now when we hold the trigger, bam, bam, the hammer only drops when the bolt closes. So cycle it kind of fast. Uh-oh, that wasn't supposed to happen. So it passed kind of through it. So let's make this a little bit heavier to kind of slow the... I guess it's already pretty heavy. So let's actually make this into a relatively thick little circle. And the lower we put it down, the smoother it'll be, or the operation will be. Take that, make it collision layer 0. There we go. Now it should function relatively well. Alright, then when you release the trigger, it resets back into the sear after the bolt cycles. Does that make kind of sense? This kind of snags this right here when the bolt is open. So even if you hold the trigger, it's not going to fire until the bolt completely closes like this. Well, it's not rocket science, it's mechanical engineering. So there you go. You've had your mechanical engineering course for this year. So stay tuned and we'll make burst. Okay, so next up, and this is going to be a little bit difficult, maybe if you're not a little bit new to how a gun operates. Damn it, Skype. So just pay attention, try to learn as much as you can. Even if you can't figure it out, at least you have auto and semi figured out. They're fairly easy. But burst functions exactly like auto and semi mixed together with modifications to adjust when the disconnector for the burst mode engages the hammer. So what we're going to do is we're going to move the selector to burst mode. Nope. Want to start the sim, don't we? So burst mode is this mode right here, 2-round burst. And what we're going to do is just copy that with the hinge actions, changing the circle. Oh, I guess that really doesn't do anything. Well, we have the grid tool, which is always useful when you're doing this kind of stuff. So actually we're just gonna alright, tell you what, let's see. Oh, right, we have to, how many collision layers are we using? All the way up to E. So we're gonna make this collision layer not G but F. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to one of these, and if you saw the burst cam in the previous video, it looked something like this. So it had 2 deep notches, rotate it 60, and then 4 shallow notches, like this. But because we have a 2-round burst, this will go 1, 2, 3, and then stop. We want 2-round bursts, so we have to modify that shape a little bit. So we have a deep notch, so you change it up every time. Deep notch, shallow notch, deep notch, shallow notch, deep notch, and shallow notch. So, oh right, you want to rotate this one more time. Did I do that right? So that's 120. 120. Hold on, let me fix this real quick. Oops. You know what, we're gonna try again. Make another circle. Collision layer F. Make it about this big. So make a deep notch, then a shallow notch, then, oops, 60 degrees, then another 60 degrees, deep notch, and a shallow notch, deep notch. Always rotate it 60 degrees. And a shallow notch. There we go, that's the shape I was looking for. Okay, so we're going to make this extremely heavy because it's going to be under a lot of stress. So we're going to make it 10,000. I'm going to go ahead and move this up to as close to the center as we can get it. You know what, we're just going to move it right here. Attach the center axle so that we can center it perfectly. Then we're going to select this hammer, hold Alt, and move it. Let's delete all these fixates just real fast. Delete or deselect that hinge. There we go. Alright, now we're going to attach a center axle, and I'm still used to calling them hinges from fun. So there we go. Now we have this rotating wheel like this. Actually, we're going to make this the same collision layer as that, so collision layer C. Alright, so the collision layer F we're actually going to use for something in just a second. So we're going to take this, select it with the hinge and that, and copy it. So now we have a second disconnector, and this one will operate a little bit differently. So we're going to add a hook like this. Alright, forgot that I had selection on. So we're going to take it, rotate it to about here. I'm going to take this, hold Alt, pull it all the way down here, combine shapes, add. So this will be our first disconnector. Note that this, make this really heavy. Wait. See how it rotates to, oh right, we want it to, when it's rotated. So we're actually going to delete that hook, move it into about right there, make that collision layer 0. We're going to fixate it to the gun real quick. So when we pull the trigger, that's when we want it to ride along that wheel. Make it a little bit longer. Maybe. So we're gonna go ahead. As I said, it's all trial and error, guys. You have to just kind of figure it out as you go. I make still plenty of mistakes, and I've been doing this for over a year. There we go. I think that's done. So combine shapes, add. So what this hook, that second hook does, is when the hammer rotates, watch what happens. It kind of, oh right, we didn't make the ratchet mechanism yet. Make these a tiny bit weaker, to the point where if we pull the trigger, it doesn't remain depressed. Make these longer though. Okay, so what we want to happen is it rotate far enough only on the deep notch. but we want it to rotate to about here on the shallow notch. So I actually have to take out this hook once more. We'll put it right there. So then when it rotates, notice how far forward it goes. I think that's just enough. Let's I don't know what to do. Oh, maybe make it a little bit bigger might help. Right, we need to actually make it smaller. Alright, so actually right now what we're going to do is we're going to select our regular disconnector, the one that's rotating, the one for semi, and we're going to go ahead and move it to its regular position real quick. We're going to add this piece. Oops. Add another one of these pieces. So now only the burst disconnector rotates. Notice it rotates just out of reach of the hammer. So when that deep notch comes, oops, let's make that a little bit longer. Fudge! Let's stay right here. So when this rotates, I don't want it to do that. Alright, what we're going to do is we're going to cut out these corners. Hopefully then it won't jam like that. Damn it. I know this isn't precision, but damn it. Daggum. I'm going to make these both heavier. So then when we rotate this, and it rotates into a deep notch, that, I'm gonna be pissed. Just try up here. So when it rotates like this, I think it'll rotate far enough that it can. Fudge! The heck is wrong with you? You stupid. I think there isn't enough difference in the shallow notch and the deep notch to really make any difference. Yeah, that really does nothing, does it? Let's try cutting this out a little bit like that. I think this will work. There we go. So you have a shallow notch where it isn't quite in deep enough. You know, I'm gonna cut the video and I'll figure it out on my own. And then I'll show you how it works later. See ya. Okay, after a little while I kind of figured it out. So notice how this deep notch right here in this wheel allows this disconnector piece to rotate forward far enough to catch the hammer. That's what we want. Let's get rid of that motor. So there you go. See how that works? However, when it rotates into this notch right here, it isn't quite deep enough to catch the hammer. That's how burst mode works. Now we just need a ratchet mechanism attached to this to allow it to rotate. So I'm going to do actually we're going to take a circle. We're going to do basically the same thing we did before, except make all of them deep notches. This will be our ratchet wheel. See how that shape is? And you want it to be in that same direction. Make this extremely heavy and make it collision layer. Let's say G. So it's quite heavy. So right now we're just gonna put it right there. See if that's right on. That is. Alright, so now we're going to place a stop of the same material. Actually, let's make this collision layer H. Make that into a box. Put the box upright. And let's put it right here. Add a hinge and a spring. And something to kind of prevent it from Alright, so our burst cam is working perfectly as far as the deep notch goes, but let's see how easily this rotates. I think that spring is a little bit too strong. I want it just to be enough so that it prevents it from rotating backwards, but so that it can rotate forward. So you see how that operates kind of like a ratchet? See, it goes ting-ting, but it can't go backwards. That's what we want. Alright, so then what we're going to do is copy this piece, put it in like this, and watch the magic that unfolds. I'm going to put this piece right here. Add a piece like that. Fixate it to that. Hinge it to that. What is it? Alright, collision layer. Nothing. What we want is to add a spring to the very end of it to make it so that it does not reverse. Alright, so now when we pull the trigger, oh, right, this spring needs to be quite strong. Actually, we won't use a spring, we're going to use a motor. Maybe not that strong of a motor, but strong enough. Notice how it rotates the cam. There you go. So watch the hammer. We're going to hold the trigger. 1, 2, and stop. There you go. Until you release the trigger again. Let's see how this operates when it's moving fast. What is it stuck on this time? Are you kidding me? What is it stuck on? Oh, I see. My bad, I accidentally locked the bolts. Right. So it's also seemingly kind of firing what appears to be like double action, and that can actually make it, just by the trigger pull alone, go back into the disconnector. Alright, so now that's functioning perfectly. Now what we need to do is add something to auto. So that the burst disconnector is disabled for auto as well. So make that H. I'm going to make it red. Make this collision layer H as well. So this is the cam that prevents the disconnectors from rotating. Oh, I accidentally attached it to the wrong one. Alright, we need to attach it to this one. Now, watch, because the burst disconnector doesn't rotate at all, because the selector is holding it down, it's going to rotate freely like that. So you get however many shots you hold the trigger down for until the magazine is empty. Now keep in mind that your burst cam is going to rotate as long as you let it. So try shooting when you use this, or do this in multiples of 2. Because this kind of burst cam doesn't reset itself. They have burst cams that do, and I've built them, but they're a little bit more complex than this. Alright, so let's go ahead and move that to the front. And save it. Rid of the grid. There you go, and now you have every single mode made. Oops. What is causing it to do that? Alright, thank you for watching, and in the next video we're going to make the magazine and make it actually fire and everything. Or we're going to start working on the ability to make it shoot. Alright, see ya.